So today, here, before giving the initiation to the disciples, the master himself has to take self-initiation, and by entering into the mandala, and I do take Bodhisattva and Tantric vows every day. And so, as part of the initiation, there is also taking the Bodhisattva vow. So we usually call this process the preliminary, preparatory, for preparation for this initiation. Dupshak. So the Wikenzi Rinpoche and others call it Wang Dup. So I will do this Wang Dup. So while I do the Wang Dup, and I was taking the initiation myself, there are the people, everyone he gathered here should the rest of you should recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, the 6-syllable mantra of Avalokiteshvara. So of course we do. I do practice the view of emptiness and bodhichitta, this altruistic intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Although I am just an ordinary being, but you could imagine Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes on sitting on my crown. So there's a story when the Lama once told the disciples that the disciples were told to imagine the deity on their sitting on their crown, and one of the disciples was bold, and therefore when he was imagining the Lama on his crown, he always felt that the Lama was actually sliding down his head because of being himself bold. So here there may be about 2,000, 1 or 2,000 people gathered. So with Avalokiteshvara on your crown, imagine and recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. This will be a special prayer for everyone. And so since you do this recitation with your devotion and to Avalokiteshvara, it would definitely please Avalokiteshvara, and therefore you should rejoice in that you are able to please Avalokiteshvara and that you are taken under his guidance, and then make your prayers. And so the main, after the initiation, we are also doing the long life puja offering, and so pleasing the Lama and being taken under his care would really be the real tenshuk, the long life offering. So do that. So this is a prayer to Avalokiteshvara, who is praised by all the Buddhas and who has accumulated all the excellent qualities, and who is called Avalokiteshvara. So we have said prayers like the precious sublime bodhichitta may it arise in those who have not yet experienced it, and may it never decline in whom it has arisen, and but may it ever increase evermore. And so Om Mani Padme Hum recites this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme
Jindre Singwan Drop Jonen
Draw Chicken Malova, Te Sana Show. Oh, yeah.
So, as it's well known, the Buddha Shakyamuni lived around 2,600 years ago, according to the popular account, historical account. And so such a person as the Buddha Shakyamuni was not someone who was enlightened right from the beginning, but he was like us, an ordinary being in the beginning, and then having met the right conditions, inner and outer conditions, he strove for many innumerable eons, and he accumulated wisdom and those of the two stores of merit and wisdom, and then became fully enlightened. So in the Sanskrit tradition, as it is mentioned in Mahayana Uttara Tantra, the Buddha possessed the four Buddha bodies, which are the wisdom truth body, the truth body, and the Nirmanakaya or emanation body, and the Sambhogakaya or complete enjoyment body. And so the Buddha possessed these four enlightened bodies. So in other words, with regard to our mind, which is empty of any inherent existence, everything in the universe is, in fact, does not exist independently or objectively. And the very fact that the mind is empty of inherent existence is its nature. But what happens is, because we adhere ourselves to some kind of objective independent existence, and therefore the destructive emotions such as attachment, lust, and anger, and so forth arise, and then we ruin ourselves, and so these destructive emotions are rooted in the fundamental ignorance. So what actually makes us able to overcome these destructive emotions is the very fact that the mind is devoid of any independent existence, and having purified or eliminated all our defilements from our mind stream, we become enlightened, a fully enlightened being, whereby we are totally absorbed in emptiness with this dharma, the jnana kaya, or the wisdom truth body. And while being absorbed in emptiness fully, the Buddhas are also able to manifest themselves in different forms. And there are within the Buddha form body, there is the Sambhogakaya, or the complete enjoyment body, which is accessible mainly to those of the Aryas, Bodhisattvas. And although some ordinary Bodhisattvas also can have seed, such a Buddha, but this Buddha is mainly accessible to these Bodhisattva, Arya Bodhisattvas, and such a Buddha body, which is called the Sambhogakaya form of body, has 5 attributes to it. And then from that Sambhogakaya form, the Buddha emanates. The Buddha also emanates as Nirmanakaya, or the manifestation body. And Shakyamuni Buddha, who appeared in the world 2,600 years ago, was one of those Nirmanakaya form of body. And so the Sambhogakaya form displays various forms of emanation bodies. And so, with regard to Avalokiteshvara, of all the different peaceful and wrathful aspects of the forms or manifestations of the Buddha, we have Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, and Vajrapani, who are said to be the embodiment or the personification of the wisdom, compassion, and the effort or activities of all the Buddhas. So here we are doing the Avalokiteshvara initiation, who is the embodiment of all the compassion of all Buddhas. And so with regards to practicing, doing practice on such a deity, Avalokiteshvara, there are practices relating to the different Tantra sets, classes of Tantra, the 4 classes of Tantra, such as Kriya Tantra, Action Tantra, Performance Tantra, and Yoga Tantra, and the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. And so here, this particular initiation of Avalokiteshvara is related to the Action Tantra, so within which there is the Tathagata, Lotus, and Vajra lineages. And so this particular one belongs to the Lotus lineage of the Action Tantra. And within this there are those of the 4-armed Avalokiteshvara, and the Simhanada Avalokiteshvara, and also the Avalokiteshvara in the relaxed form, and so forth. So here today we are going to do the initiation of 1,000-armed, 1,000-eyed Avalokiteshvara. So these special deities of meditation have compassion, which is unbiased, though that is the case. From the side of the sentient beings, as I said yesterday, there are the general structure teaching of the Buddha, and then the specifically tailored teachings of the Buddha. And therefore, due to certain karmic connections and the aspirational prayers of the sentient beings, they come in contact with the certain deities, especially. So because of our karmic connections, some people could accomplish their practice of deities according to the highest yoga, the Action Tantra or highest yoga Tantra, and so forth. Since there is the deities themselves are unbiased, so accordingly to the to the karmic connections, as well as the inclination, spiritual inclination, interest, and character, and so forth, and also aspirational prayers of the sentient beings. Accordingly, these different deities appear to them, and the sentient beings are able to do the practice accordingly. And in Tibet, for example, some people in Tibet or India have special connection with Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, or it could be Buddha of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, and so forth. So though the Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara in themselves do not bias against some or have any prejudice against others, but because of the predispositions of the sentient beings, they appear to different beings according to their needs and karmic connections and so forth. So in Abhisamaya Alankara, ornament for clear realization, Maitreya mentions that the deities could be taken as your witness in your practice. And so sometimes the visions of Aryatara, the goddess Tara, or Avalokiteshvara could appear to different beings. So Avalokiteshvara is, because he is the deity of compassion, for those who are practicing, emphasizing compassion, Avalokiteshvara becomes a special deity. In China, Chinese call it Kuan Yin. They call Avalokiteshvara Kuan Yin. And so there is the special connection or emphasis because of the special practice of compassion. And bodhichitta, Avalokiteshvara becomes special deity for that. And in Tibet, so the Buddha himself has actually prophesied that Avalokiteshvara, who was one of the 8 close disciples of Buddha himself, was prophesied to appear as the patron deity of the land of snows. And it was also prophesied that the teaching of the Buddha would spread from north to north from India, Tibet, and so forth. And so authentic historical accounts also shows that the land of snows, the Tibet, is the specially connected land to which is specially connected to Avalokiteshvara. For example, the Tibetan Dharma kings like Songtsen Gampo and Chisong Detsen, and also there is of course Chirelpochen and so on. So with regard to Songtsen Gampo, it is very clear that he was specially connected to Avalokiteshvara, and Chisong Detsen too was very clear that it was he had special connection with Avalokiteshvara. And so that Buddhism was first brought on the Tibetan soil by Songtsen Gampo, and then Chisong Detsen established that of the Nalanda, pure Nalanda tradition of Buddhism on the Tibetan soil. And Chisong Detsen himself also was sometimes recognized as emanation of Manjushri, but he had special connection with Avalokiteshvara. So the Tibetans, for us, our special deity out of many deities, that of Avalokiteshvara becomes the one relying on whom we could accomplish our goals more easily. And then in the past, during the kings of the temple, the kings, Songtsen Gampo and so forth, Dharma kings. It seems that the Buddhism also spread to Kyrgyzstan and the other areas. About 4 or 5 years ago, I met with a former Foreign Minister of Kyrgyzstan with 2 professors came to see me, and they showed me a photo which was a photo of the inscription of the Tibetan letter, the Uchen letter. The inscription was of the 6-syllable mantra of Avalokiteshvara Om Mani Padme Hum, and they told me that they found it on top of a coffin in Kyrgyzstan. And so that shows that in those ancient times, the Buddhist tradition that had been established in Tibet had spread to those regions, such as Kyrgyzstan. And then here in regarding the Ladakis yourselves, and so through these Dharma, Tibetan Dharma kings, there had been special connection with that of Avalokiteshvara, and then the lines of the Dalai Lamas, including myself. Of course, the first Dalai Lama, Gendun Trup, had no, it doesn't have his own household called Labrang, the Lama estate. And then the second Dalai Lama, Gendun Gyatso, had clear signs, showed very clear signs of being the reincarnation of the first Dalai Lama, Gendun Trup. And then since from these 2, we have the lines of Dalai Lamas. So the past Dalai Lamas were incredibly great personalities, the great beings, and so the Ladakis, the lines of Dalai Lamas have a special connection with the Tibetans. And regarding myself, if we check the time of my arrival in this world, I was born in Kumbum area, in a very remote village. I was born, and I was recognized as the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. And Radin Rinpoche went to the special lake of Palden Hamo, the goddess, protector goddess Palden Hamo, called Hamilotso, the lake of the spirit of Palden Hamo, and did propitiation practices of the protectors and so forth. And this Hamilotso is situated in Chogurgyal. So the Chongor-Gyal monastery was actually founded by the second Dalai Lama, and so there was a very special connection between the Palden Lama and the Dalai Lama. And so when the first Dalai Lama founded Teshil Humbo Monastery, the name Hunpo, referring to the mountain, was actually given by Palden Lama herself. So one of the previous abbots of Tashilimbo Monastery, Kachin Serpala, And he used to tell me that the Dalai Lamas actually belonged to the Tashilhempo monastery. And then I teased him by saying that who actually made the second Dalai Lama not being able to remain in Tashilhempo monastery. And since then he moved to the second Dalai Lama, that moved to central Tibet. So this must have some significance also, moving from Tashilhempo in the Tsang region of Tibet to the central part of Tibet. And if the Dalai Lama, second Dalai Lama, and the rest of the Dalai Lamas had been residing in Tashilhempo, perhaps their enlightened deeds could have spread in that region, but not in the central Tibet. And so one of the abbots at that time of Drepung had a dream of the second Dalai Lama coming to Drepung, and then the second Dalai Lama became abbot of Drepung and Sarah and so the enlightened deeds of the Dalai Lamas spread from the second Dalai Lama to the central Tibet and also Lhoka and so forth. And then so these could be mysterious things that the Dalai Lamas appeared in different parts of Tibet, and then accordingly their enlightened deeds spread not only in the Tsang in central part of Tibet, but also Kham in Chamdo and then later on to Amdo, Kham and Amdo, and also to those of the Mongolia. So the third Dalai Lama went to the Mongolia, and then the fourth Dalai Lama was actually born as a Mongolian, child of a Mongolian leader. So if you look at the life history of the first to the fourth Dalai Lama, through to the fourth Dalai Lama, and then the fifth Dalai Lama later on became the leader of both the spiritual and temporal leader of the Tibetan people. And with the help of Gushri Chogyal, Tenzin Chogyal, this happened. So the fifth Dalai Lama became both the temporal and spiritual leader of the Tibetan land, which is called the area of Tikor Chuksum and so forth. Although he started this dual responsibility of Tibetan administration and religion, I have voluntarily left it. So if I could have the vision of the fifth Dalai Lama, I don't know what he would say, but there is no danger of him appearing again. So since 1969, I officially actually announced that whether the Dalai Lama institution would continue or not is up to the Tibetan people. And so, as I was mentioning, the Lama Lotso, the spirit, the lake of the spirit of this god, goddess Padum, there appeared the three letters Akama. And of course, there were different signs or indications of where the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama would be born. And so A refers to Amdo, the northeastern part of Tibet, and Ka refers to Kumbum region, and then Ma sometimes is referred to the Karmapa Rinpoche, who had founded a monastery in Amdo. And but in a writing of one Dakpu Doji Chang, it is mentioned that a boy will be born who would be given a name of a girl. So in my childhood, I was named Lhamo Tundrup. So Lhamo is a feminine term, and so there is a boy bearing a girl's name, Lhamo. I think that the Ma in the three letters, Akama, may refer to my bearing this feminine name, Lhamo. So I don't know for sure, but in America, I have also told to people that in the past Dalai Lamas, all the past Dalai Lamas had visions of different deities. The 13th Dalai Lama too had. I don't have any vision of any kind of deity or meditational deity. Though I do not have such visions like the past Dalai Lamas, I told people that I am the most popular Dalai Lama, the most famous Dalai Lama. So this shows, this also has to do with our understanding of how things come about through causes and conditions, dependently originated. And so we lost our country, and then we actually became connected with the rest of the world, and so of course, those regarding the subtlest form of karma, karmic causality, it is something that is accessible to the enlightened beings. But because of the past prayers and the intentions of the past Dalai Lamas, I have become one of the Dalai Lamas. And so though I do not have any special ability, but I am sincere in my practice of the Dharma, following Master Nagarjuna, Master Shantideva, and relying on their writings, I have found faith in the teaching of the Buddha through understanding based on reason. So if I were to actually, I do not really feel or think that I am the 14th Dalai Lama. So if I were to be very formal and kind of serious with people, I wouldn't have any friends. Kuno Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen says that if you want happiness for yourself, cultivate bodhichitta. If you want others to be happy, meditate on bodhichitta. And so bodhichitta is that factor which really gives you real joy and happiness. So it is said by Shantideva that if you are not able to exchange your happiness with the suffering of others, there is no joy. You will not become enlightened. Even in samsara, you will not have happiness. If you remain very selfish, then you'll be lonely. But if you actually if you are altruistic, thinking of the welfare or well-being of others, and you will be happy, as well as being able to help others be happy. And so Master Nagarjuna and his disciples, as well as the writings of Master Shantideva, when I use them and gain some experience, draw some experience within myself, so I feel that we could actually help beings in the world. So there is every means that we could develop called integrate within ourselves to be happy through this practice of the altruism. Though I am just an ordinary person, because of a very powerful karma and aspirations, I am where I am today, and I am able to serve the Dharma and also beings to a certain extent. Should I boast about something? Should I? So Avalokiteshvara, thousand-armed, thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara, of course, has great ability to serve other sentient beings. But that ability of Avalokiteshvara to serve others has to go through me. I'm just an ordinary person with one face, two hands. So when Avalokiteshvara, who is actually who has fulfilled both the goals of himself and others completely, wish to serve others, he has to go through me, someone who was born as an Amdo boy and an ordinary person like me. So Himalayan people of Himalayan regions also have some connection, special connection with Avalokiteshvara. So I don't know if I can come again and again in the future. So I did some divination, and then I decided to, because the divination showed that it was good to give the Avalokiteshvara initiation, I decided to do this. And so I did this divination by praying to Avalokiteshvara, and so this initiation was actually made, or decision to give this initiation came from Avalokiteshvara. So in order to give this initiation of Avalokiteshvara, the Arya Avalokiteshvara, I did that of the self-entry into the mandala, and then generated the frontal deity. So in order to enter the mandala and receive initiations, one should also have do the practice of self-generation into the deity. And so I did that, and also did the request the deity to the permission to give the initiation. And next comes the disciples making offering of mandala and then giving the initiation to you. And so before that we have the Dharma offering to the so-called negative forces who might otherwise so since some time back, I have actually felt that there's no being who are to be overcome, considering or regarding them as the enemies of the Dharma. And so I do not do this Dharma for the evil forces as such. So other lamas or geishas and so forth, when you do such initiations, perhaps you could do the Gektor Gektor offering. As it is said in Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, today I call on all the protectors as my witness and call on sentient beings as my guests to the feast of Sugatahood, the Buddhahood, and in the meantime to the happiness in the world. And therefore gods and demigods and so forth be joyous. So we have, when we do certain deity yoga practices, there are these lines which actually summoning certain beings who are considered as negative forces, harming the dharma and so forth. And so I do not consider I do not think that there are such beings as evil ones. And so if you really wish to do the Gektor, the dharma for those of the evil forces, then perhaps I would need a bigger vajra to hit on their head. And so I just do a dharma offering for as part of this preliminary process. So instead of doing the Gektor, I actually make offering of a dharma to the local spirits and deities. And next, the disciples have to make an offering of Mandala. So this ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it to you. May all beings enjoy the pure land. Nam Dai Shela Jai Bhajo. That I imagine all the virtues that and the resources that I have gained through my body, speech and mind, and all the virtues that I have collected throughout the 3 times. I imagine them in the form of the offerings on the mandala, the precious jewels and so forth, and offer it to my guru and the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And please accept this mandala and bless me. May the sound of the great Dharma drum dispel the miseries of sentient beings. May you live long to turn. So it is very clear that I have a very strong karmic and aspirational prayer connection with the Dalai Lamas, and I have not been able to practice the Dharma throughout, my whole life as such, but I am able to do some practice of the bodhichitta and the view of emptiness, and so this is a real offering of my practice to the Avalokiteshvara, and so I'm able to serve beings around the world, and so this is without there being a very strong karmic connection as well as prayer, aspirational prayers that have been made in the past. These cannot happen. So first we are going to do the preliminary process of the initiation. Today we are doing the preliminary process and the actual initiation in one go. So to do tantric practice, of course, the practice of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness, the insight into emptiness, are common to both Sutrayana and Tantrayana. But what is lacking in the Sutrayana is that in Tantrayana there is the unique course which creates or brings about that of the form body of a Buddha. As I have explained the other day, in the resultant state, the Dharmakaya, which is free from all fabrication and a multiplicity. So while the Buddha is totally absorbed in emptiness, in that meditative equipoise on emptiness, which is the result of meditation on emptiness during the trainee level path. In the Sutrayana, there are mentions of the courses for form bodies, such as inviting one's Lama or receiving, and also seeing Lamas off and so forth. But there is no real course that is created from within ourselves. Now, the unique course for the physical dimension of a Buddha is mentioned, especially in the highest Yoga Tantra. So in Buddhahood, the three body, speech and mind, which are called the three secrets, are of one taste. And that is possible if you have the at the trainee level the course which is similar to that. So after gaining a very high level of experience of the completion stage in the highest Yoga Tantra, then you actually create the that of the form, this very unique course of this physical form of Buddha. Of course, even the non-Buddhist traditions have the practices of using our subtle wind energy, and also the vital drops and channels. And so this, because I had once some discussions with a non-Buddhist practitioner in Gorakhpur, and so they seem to have such practices of that we have in our Tantra. And also visualizing oneself as deity, and also seems to be there in the non-Buddhist tradition. I have once asked Kuno Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen Rinpoche about the difference. How do we differentiate between the deity yoga practice of Buddhism and Hinduism? And he told me that in Hinduism, they do all these deity yoga practices and all and within this view of an independent self or soul. Whereas in Buddhism, we meditate on selflessness, and then on the basis of that, we do that of the practice of deity yoga. And so, if the deity yoga practice, which also includes the practices of using our subtle wind energy, vital drops, and also those of the channels, and if those practices are done in connection with the view of emptiness, then that is Buddhist practice. If it is done with the view of an independent soul, that is non-Buddhist practice. And so, even at the trainee level, what we do is we, even if it may be just our imagination or visualization, we do the practice of visualizing ourselves as a deity, and therefore these serves as the to form the course of the physical dimension of a Buddha. And so you can't do deity yoga practice and thinking that you are a deity while you remain ordinary, perceiving and clinging to yourself as an ordinary person like you are now. But what you should be able to do is you should meditate on emptiness, and then from within the meditation on emptiness, you arise into the form of a deity and visualize yourself as deity. And so here, while you go through this process of taking part in the initiation of Avalokiteshvara, you should imagine the Lama not as an ordinary person, but Avalokiteshvara himself in person. Please repeat this. Chanju Chenpo Tsui Tenpo, Gombo Chenpo Datsalo, Tamzi Tengi Dalatsu, Chanju Semgya Dalatsu, Sanje Chudan Gedu de Kyapsun Daya Dalatsu, Tapa Chenpo Chongjo do Gombo Dani Shudu Su, Gombo Dani Shudu Su. Protector, please lead me into the great city of liberation. So for the time being, as you are not allowed to see the secret of the Mandala, the celestial mansion of the deity, you are given this blindfold. And then you are also given a flower garland, a garland of flower, which is to be used when to offer to the deity when you later are entered, let into the mandala and see the deity. And then think along these lines from Mula Madhyamaka Karikaba Nagarjuna. Not the psychophysical aggregates, nor separate from them, nor is he in the aggregates. Neither is he in the aggregates, nor the aggregates are in him, regarding Avalokiteshvara. And so the psychophysical aggregates of Avalokiteshvara are not Avalokiteshvara. His body and other aggregates are not him, nor his mind. And the Brahma voice of Avalokiteshvara is not Avalokiteshvara. So leaving aside the body of Avalokiteshvara, the speech of Avalokiteshvara, and the mind of Avalokiteshvara, where is Avalokiteshvara? You don't find him apart from the body, speech and mind of him. So it is similar to oneself as well. So I'm not one with the aggregates, nor separate from them. I'm not in these aggregates, nor the aggregates are in me. Who am I then? And so, thinking along these lines, you are, of course, human beings and have faith. Where is that faithful person? You cannot actually find yourself either in your body or in your mind. But due to the conventionality, the worldly convention, which is a valid convention, though you do exist conventionally, you are not able to find yourself from within your aggregates. And so, meditate on emptiness. So you have to meditate on selflessness or emptiness. So of course, when we say things are empty, you are empty, we are not being nihilist. Because we do talk about meditating or reflecting on the faults of self-cherishing attitude and the excellent qualities of cherishing others over oneself and so forth. So there is oneself and others. And with regard to emptiness, so in dream we see things, accordingly those things are there in dream, and then also those of the illusory magical illusions also do exist out of the illusion through the illusion of the magician. So the seventh Dalai Lama says these lines, which shows that wherever we look, we say, "Oh." When we ask, "Where is the mountain?" we say, "It's there." But when we say that, the mountain seems to be existing out there from its own side. And then also when you think about yourself, you have this notion that I am here. There is some kind of a solidity of that notion of solidity of yourself, whereas so it's important here when we talk about selflessness, selfless in the sense of the lack of any substantially substantially existent self, and the subtler one. So, as long as there is grasping at some of the true existence of one's psychophysical aggregates, there is, to that extent, there is grasping of a self, independent self. And therefore, until you are able to develop the antidote to this grasping at some true existence of the psychophysical aggregates, you'll not be able to do away with this, grasping at a self. And so I have some experience of this when I was reading a commentary, the commentary on Madhyamaka by Master Tsongkhapa. And when I read his commentary, I had this feeling of no self, that I don't exist. But when I was when I actually had the experience, there was some kind of a lightning bolt that kind of passed through my self. And then after coming out of that meditation, when I looked at things, I felt, oh, that person or that thing does not have any existence from their side. But when I actually used that experience on persons and other things, I found some difference there, which showed that although I had some understanding or insight into the grosser selflessness, I still had not the experience of the subtle selflessness. And so the subtle selflessness can be established on the persons as well as those of the psychophysical aggregates and other things. And therefore, when you have some kind of anxiety or you have a notion of a sense of a self, and just to be able to negate that kind of a self that you have a notion of is not the subtle insight into a selflessness. And so we have to be we have to actually be able to gain insight into these subtle and the gross forms of selflessness. So it's very important to be able to negate the independent self on these psychophysical aggregates and the person or self. And I once read Kidub Rinpoche's writing on selflessness. So he says that just following the words of the Lama, saying that, oh, my Lama said that everything is empty of self or independent existence. Just following those words is it's just a belief in yourself. But after receiving those teachings on selflessness, when you spend days, weeks, months, years, decades, and then you really develop the experience of emptiness from your own and through your own effort over the long period of time, then you will be able to really have the true experience of selflessness. And without that, merely having some sense of selflessness and not really gain insights, true insight into emptiness, you will not be able to actually hit on the head of this ego grasping. So in order to have experience or understanding drawn through reflection, you must have actually studied what you are meditating on. That has to come through study or hearing the teachings. And having heard the teaching, then you need to reflect on what you have heard and then draw conviction and then use that experience or the insight in your daily meditation, and then you'll be able to actually see the fruit of your meditation. So even in the external world, the fruits and flowers and so forth do not appear right away. You have to have the seed, which has to be nurtured, and then the trees grow, and then the flowers, the plants that grow, and the flowers also slowly blossom from the buds, and and this is how the process of how in the external world things become ripened, and then you have the fruits and the flowers. And so similarly, this process of ripening has to happen within ourselves. So today, I tell people that logic, it's therefore in this kind of developing such experience of emptiness and so forth, logic is very important. And logic is, although comes from scriptural texts for us, logic as such is not a religious matter. It can be used by science and other people. So when you are overcome with anger and jealousy, you are unhappy, aren't you? Intense anger and jealousy. And so whether any practitioner of any religion, Christianity or Islam or Hinduism and so forth, all religions teach that they have the same message, which is love and compassion. Whereas in the Western religious traditions, the theistic religious traditions, the emphasis is on faith, having faith in God and so forth. Whereas in Indian tradition, there is use of meditation, single-pointed concentration, as well as vipassana, which is a critical, analytical meditation. So to do critical analytical meditation, you need to use logic. And by using our critical faculty, which is the intellect, we need to use that to gain insight into our the nature, the reality of things. And by using our intelligence, we need to, which is most important, we need to develop the good heart or warm heart. And so for this, we rely on the text on logic. So even to the Muslims, I tell that if you could study psychology and logic that are found in the traditional Indian scriptures, it would be very helpful for you. So psychology teaches us how to develop calm mind and to understand what actually disturbs our peace of mind, and thereby use the factors from within, which brings about peace within our mind. I usually say that I have one defect or fault, which shortcoming, which is once I open my mouth, I go on talking, blah blah blah, and time goes by. So I was talking too much, perhaps. So what I was trying to say is, everyone has to now meditate on emptiness. If you even when you look at me, the guru here, you will not be able to pinpoint anything in me as me. And similarly, things around you, the mountains, the trees, and so forth, and including yourself. There is nothing whatever which has any intrinsic independent existence. And then we do talk about the three times: past, present. For example, what is present? We talk about present century, which is made up of 100 years, and each year is made up of 12 months. And if you break that 12 months into, each month into the weeks and days, so each month is made up of weeks, and weeks are made up of days, and within a day you can talk about the past days, present and the future, and even in 1 hour you will talk about the past and the present and future. So when you talk about past and the future, you have to relate to the present. And the present, within the present moment, you talk about an hour, which is made up of 60 minutes. Each minute made up of 60 seconds. And where is the second? You may say, talk about the present second. But where is that present second? Half of it is gone, half yet to come. And so, if you analyze in this way closely everything, the time, present, the so-called present cannot be found. So in the 400 verses it is mentioned that with the present moment also, with regard to it, half is gone, half is yet to come. So in this way, when you do examine things, time and so forth, nothing can be found. So when you actually analyze the things, there's nothing that you can pinpoint as being this or that. Nothing can be found. And then the Madhyamaka Avatar goes on to say that you cannot find a chariot if you do check or examine it through the sevenfold reasoning, but merely by convention we do say that this and that thing exists. And so things do exist in convention, but nothing whatever has any independent, solid or concrete existence, not the Sangha or anybody. Of course, we do exist. It's not that we are not non-existent. But when you actually try to get at yourself within the psychophysical aggregates, you will not be able to pinpoint or point your finger at anything being yourself. And that understanding has to be developed, and you have to gain insight into emptiness. So meditate on emptiness. So what you have to feel convinced is that things and yourself do not exist the way they appear to you. And so, having meditated on emptiness now, from within that state of emptiness, you imagine yourself arising in the form of Avalokiteshvara. So, having arisen in the form of Avalokiteshvara, visualizing yourself Avalokiteshvara, imagine the three letters Om on your crown, A at your throat, and Hum at your heart. And put your hands together in this, fold your hands, palms together, and then open it up. So this is the lotus petal, and hold this gesture at your heart, and please repeat this after me. Om Pema Ubhavaya Swaha. So this is a gesture of the lotus lineage. So since the Bodhisattva vows come during the actual initiation, we'll not have it here, do it here. So, as I have said before, have this intense intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So when you take initiations, in your mind, you should not have the intention to overcome obstacles in your life and to have a long life and also become wealthy. So these intentions should not be there when you take initiation. And also you should not be tinged, your mind or thought should not be tinged with selfish attitude, selfish motive, thinking that you want liberation for yourself alone. So that also should not be the motivation for receiving this initiation, but the correct motivation should be to become a fully enlightened being, a Buddha, and for the sake of all sentient beings. And with that motivation and intention, you need to take initiation. So we have done the meditation on emptiness and also visualized ourselves transforming into Avalokiteshvara. Also, we have requested the Master to lead us into the city of liberation or to give initiation. And next is urging the disciples to have firm faith in Tantra. And so, in order to reach Buddhahood, to attain Buddhahood, you need to create the complete and correct courses of that resultant stage. So in the Sutrayana, or the perfection vehicle, of course there are the practices of the six perfections, generosity, morality and so forth, but it does not have the complete course for Buddhahood, which is in Tantra. So what has been said is through the secret mantra path, the king of Shakya clans, Shakyamuni and so forth, overcame the evil forces and saw the world following them and turned the wheel of Dharma, then passed away. Thus, in order to achieve omniscience, make this intelligent effort, my child. So since it's quite windy, the text that I'm using, some folios are about to be carried away by the wind. When I was once giving a teaching on these concise stages of the path, on the path to enlightenment, one of the pages was actually blown away by the wind. There was very strong wind then, and it was actually found by someone outside the stadium where I was giving the teaching. And so I'm touching, imagine that I'm touching your heart, throat and crown. So when you see me doing this gesture, imagine that all the negativities and obscurations that you have accumulated through your mind, speech and body are cleansed. and then you are bestowed, or this blessing leaves an imprint in your mind for achieving the mind, speech, and body of Avalokiteshvara. So having blessed your body, speech, and mind with these three letters, you have made offerings of incense, flower, and perfume, and so forth. And then next is giving the blessed water. Next is taking the Bodhisattva vows. So the most important factor, or the most powerful factor for taking initiation, is Bodhisattva vows. So with regard to the Bodhisattva vow, what you are thinking is you are bearing this intention to help and benefit all sentient beings and not harm anyone. So you are saying that you will do to the best of your ability to help and benefit others and not harm or hurt them. So you intend to benefit other sentient beings, help other sentient beings, and even if you are not able to do that, you restrain harming them. So each and every sentient being has what is known as Buddha nature, which is the potential for each and every one to attain those of the Buddha's powers, the 10 powers, and so forth. And so in order for this potential to become fully realized, the obscurations, the defilements hinder that. And so we have the basic the potential for attaining the Buddha's powers, 10 powers, and so forth, as it is mentioned in Mahayana Uttara Tantra by Maitreya. So we have this potential for eliminating all our shortcomings and limitations, and also to achieve all the excellent qualities within ourselves. And so, in order to be able to realize for yourself as well as others this potential fully, we need to get rid of the obscurations or defilements, and therefore we need to make this have this intention to help all sentient beings and not to harm anyone. So for this benefit of all sentient beings, you have this intention to generate bodhichitta, and in order to be able to fulfill the wishes and the interests of all sentient beings, you should have the intention to engage in the bodhisattva practices, such as the 6 perfections and so forth. So please kneel on your right knee or crouch, everyone, and repeat these lines. Imagine all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas in the space before you, including the 8 Bodhisattvas who are called the close disciples of the Buddha, and also Master Nagarjuna and the other 17 Nalanda masters and masters Mahasiddhas, the greatly accomplished masters Saraha, Telupa and so forth, of India, as well as the masters of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, such as those of the Nyingma tradition and the 8 Vidyadharas, and also the 25 disciples of Guru Padmasambhava, including the King Tisungdetsen and so forth, as well as the masters of the Kagyu tradition, such as those of the Marpa, the great translator, and Milarepa, and Thakur Haji, and so forth. So all the masters of the Kagyu tradition, and also those of the Sakya tradition, the masters such as the 5 patriarchs of Sakya, and all the lineage lamas of the path and the fruit, and then also the masters of the Padum tradition, as well as the Master Tsongkhapa and his disciples and followers of the Gelug tradition. And so, of course, you have faith and you take refuge in them. And so if you admire them, what you should do is you should actually train yourself in their footsteps. So how do you do that? By engaging in the Bodhisattva practices so that you tread along the path and the grounds of Bodhisattvas to reach the Buddhahood. So please repeat this for Bodhisattvas. I seek refuge in 3 jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. I take to heart Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of oneself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delighting supreme practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. So, having said this for the first time, repeat it for the second time. I seek refuge in the 3 jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. I take to my heart Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of myself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delighting supreme practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. And at the end of the 3rd repetition now, when you say, may I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings, at that point, all of you should think that you have received a complete set of Bodhisattva vows, which is within the mind stream of my Guru. So you should feel fortunate that you have been able to receive the Bodhisattva vows from your master, just as those vows are in the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I seek refuge in the 3 jewels. I confess all misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. I take to my heart Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of myself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delighting supreme practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. If I do not perfectly exchange my happiness with the suffering of others, I shall not attain Buddhahood. Even in samsara, I will not have happiness. Which intelligent person would not wish to ride the horse of bodhichitta, which leads from from bliss to bliss? just as the great elements and the space, may I become a sustenance for innumerable beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. So taking the Bodhisattva vow, it is a great factor for accumulating great merit. So having taken the Bodhisattva vows, next we are going to do what is known as the all-encompassing yoga mind. So just as you have generated bodhichitta, think that all sentient beings are same like you, not wanting suffering but wanting happiness. And on your part, to overcome suffering and to attain the highest happiness, that is the Buddhahood, whereby you have at which stage you have overcome all the shortcomings and have generated or attained all the excellent qualities. And so, by treading or journeying along the paths and the grounds of bodhisattvas, you reach Buddhahood. And therefore, in order to have this intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, to overcome all their suffering and to lead them to that state of full enlightenment, Buddhahood. So in order to be able to do that, you intend to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So have this aspiring bodhicitta. So for a half a minute, let us all meditate on this aspiring bodhicitta. So this motivation or the intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings that you have now generated, imagine it transforming into a white disk of light, which is called the white moon disk at your heart. So this bodhicitta that you have generated now transforms into a moon disk at your heart. As I've already explained before, next is the meditation on emptiness. I've explained it yesterday too. In order to be able to serve or fulfill the aims and interests of others, we need to be able to overcome the destructive emotions within ourselves and others. And so, the good heart, warm heart of bodhicitta and so forth may be able to help to a certain extent to reduce intensity of selfishness, but in order to uproot ignorance and all the destructive emotions, we need to realize emptiness. And so Master Nagarjuna says, a person is not the earth, water, fire, wind, nor the consciousness in space, but what else is a person? A person is designated, not each of the five aggregates is the person, and not the collection of the aggregates. So the person is not the aggregates, and each aggregate themselves are also not real or do not have any inherent existence. So form is mere name, and space too is mere name. And since there's no real elements. Where is the space too? And the name itself has no intrinsic or independent existence. So those things do appear to us as if they have some kind of a core in them, but when you actually search for their identity, you cannot find any core within them. And so in the Heart Sutra, there's mention of the fourfold emptiness, which is to say form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness too is not other than form. And so when you actually look at the form or some physical matter, I mean, nothing whatever can be pinpointed as being that matter when you search for its identity, and therefore form is empty, and emptiness is form. Shows that form is merely designated. Because form is empty of any intrinsic, objective, independent existence, therefore, through dependence on other factors, form comes into being. And form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness too is not other than form, which shows that the form and its emptiness are of the same essence. And so let us all meditate on emptiness using these lines. So the seventh Dalai Lama in his Song of Experience says, this reality, which does not have any ground, not realizing it, I am bound by my ignorance, this illusion. So what is the... When you actually hold on to something having some kind of an essence or core, and you actually bind yourself. You bind yourself with ignorance. So he's saying that please bless me to realize the emptiness, to free myself. And so now imagine that this insight of emptiness that you have generated transforms into a white Vajra, five-spoked Vajra, standing on the moon disk at your heart that you have imagined earlier. And so, at your heart now, imagine the moon disk on which is standing this white five-spoked Vajra. So these two principles, the bodhichitta represented by the moon disk, and the view of emptiness, wisdom of emptiness represented by the Vajra. So these are the two factors which help you to reach or attain the Buddha bodies. Please repeat this. Om Sarva Yoga Citta, Upatayami. Om Sarva Yoga Citta, Upatayami. Om Sarva Yoga Citta, Upatayami. So you have pledged to keep these two principles until you reach enlightenment. So just as you have imagined, the white moon disk and the white Vajra standing on it, likewise, at the heart of the Guru, the similar moon disk and white Vajra, five-spoked white Vajra, are there at the Guru's heart, and replicas of which come forth, shoot forth, and dissolve into the from the heart of the Guru. The replicas of the moon and the Vajra comes forth, shoots forth, and dissolves into the moon and the Vajra at your heart, and thereby the stabilizing your two attitudes or the mind of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. So next is urging the disciples to keep secrecy of Tantra, not to disclose it. So Tantra is something which should be practiced in a hidden manner and secretly. Please repeat this mantra, imagining you are going around the deities in the mandala. Maharata, Suduku, Susuku, Benzasato, Adisiddhima, Maharata, Sundinda, Suduku, Susuku, Benzasato, Adisiddhima, Maharata, Sundinda, Suduku, Susuku, Benzasato, Adisiddhima. Imagine making prostrations to the deities of the mandala and touch your forehead. Repeat this, Om Namah Tehum. Om Namah Tehum, touch your throat, touch your heart, Om Namah Namah. So. Please repeat this. All the Tathagatas, please bless me and bring down the great compassionate into me. Bring the great compassionate one into me. So, having generated bodhichitta and also that of the wisdom of emptiness, with the intention to become a Buddha, so you have actually created the course for becoming the vessel to become the vessel for receiving the blessings of the Avalokiteshvara. So imagine innumerable forms of Avalokiteshvara and also the mantra of Avalokiteshvara and the symbols of Avalokiteshvara symbolizing or representing the heart of Avalokiteshvara come down and dissolve into you. So the body, speech and mind of Avalokiteshvara, in other words, come down in the form of blessing and bless you. So imagine the blessings are now stabilized. So next is asking what colors appear to your eyes. Please use the blindfolds. Shibenzakorda, Hayagirva, Hulu Hulumbe. Please repeat this. Shibenzakorda, Hayagirva, Hulu Hulumbe. Imagine that you are going around the deities 3 times inside the mandala. So when the abbot of Kasha monastery throws the flower in the mandala, imagine that all of us also are throwing the flower in the mandala. Hold the flower in your middle, between your middle fingers, between the folded hands. So make your prayer that the flower would fall on the deity with whom you have special karmic connection. Grahana Humpe. But these are Benza who Poemed. So the flower fell on the southern side of the mandala, which is related to Ratna Sambhava, indicating that you'll be wealthy. So Ratna Sambhava has a connection with increasing your longevity and also your merit, increasing your merit. So here, in the actual initiation, there are two initiations. One is the water initiation, which is for ripening your mind for that of the Dharmakaya, the truth body of a Buddha. And then the next is a crown initiation for the Buddha's physical dimension. Please make a mandala offering. Please repeat this. So just as you have imagined yourself as Avalokiteshvara earlier, have a clear idea again of yourself, visualizing yourself as Avalokiteshvara. So now the initiation deities are invited. So the deities in the mandala are intending to give the initiation, while the deities of initiation who are invoked and invited confer the initiation, the water initiation, upon the disciples. So from the heart of the guru, deities of the mandala, the initiation deities are invited, and they are asked to, they come forth to confer this water initiation upon the disciples. So these lines that I'm reciting are the lines of auspiciousness, which were written by Master Nagarjuna. So they relate to the three jewels, the auspiciousness through the blessings of the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So imagine that this, having received the water initiation, that it leaves a very powerful imprint in your mind to purify your mind of all the negativities and defilements, and thereby it leaves an imprint for that of the Dharmakaya. And then, having received this initiation, imagine that the initiation deities pour the blessed water on you, thereby these the 5 Buddha families adorn your crown or your head. So this leaves a very special imprint for Dharmakaya, attaining Dharmakaya. Next is the crown initiation, for which we make a mandala offering. This crown anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with. Please repeat this. Imagine that you have now received the crown initiation, which leaves a very special imprint in your mind for attaining the physical form of a Buddha. So I had actually forgotten to tell you that from the flower falling on in the southern side of the mandala, you received that of the secret name of Ratna Vajra. So your secret name from this initiation is Ratna Vajra. Next is giving the transmission of the mantra. Please repeat this. The master and the main deity of the mandala are not different. They are in the form of thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara. And at the heart of the guru is a free mantra, and then around it is the Om, the 6-syllable mantra, which So the chain of this mantra comes from the Guru's heart, up his body, out of his mouth, enters our mouth and placed at our heart. Please repeat. Om mani pe main hu, 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 Om mani pe main hu. So we repeat this 7 times. So next, the disciples are given the permission So the 7 royal objects and so forth are given to the disciples. So with this, so the permission is given to the disciples. Of course, you having received the initiation, you need to do to be able to become a fully qualified master to confer the same initiation to others. You should do the qualified confinement retreat meditation on Avalokiteshvara, and then go through the practice of making the fire offering. And so even if you are not able to go through the whole process of doing the special retreat and making the fire offering and so forth on a daily basis, whenever you can, try to be kind and warm-hearted towards others so that you can give beneficial advice to others without any selfish motive. So having attained this human body, this human life with 18 positive endowments and opportunities, you should dedicate your life for the well-being of others and try to serve others as best as you can. So you have become someone who is a vessel for attaining that of the Dharmakaya and Rupakaya of Buddhahood. So having received the initiation, so for the school children, I wish to do this so the blessing of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom. So this particular prayer that I said is said to be teeming with, is full of blessings. It is said that in India, in those ancient times, there were many masters who were doing the practice on Manjushri, and they were said to have written praise to Manjushri. And when all these prayers were collected, it was found that all the masters have written the same prayer. So pure from the primordially pure, and having traversed the 10 grounds, your set of enlightened qualities is complete. Thus, as a spiritual son of the triumphant one, your body is bedecked with the enlightened adornments, 10 times 10 plus 2. Please remove the darkness from my mind, O Manjushri, I bow down to you. So even from my own experience in my childhood, I have been able, since my childhood, I have recited this mantra. Please repeat, Om Marapazanadi, Om Marapazanadi, Om Marapazanadi. In order to accomplish an unforgettable memory, imagine a D syllable with the head pointing inside, slightly slanted, and as you repeat D, imagine the D at your throat drips towards the D at your heart, where the flame, where you have a flame on top at the heart. Imagine the D at your throat falls and merges with the D at your heart. So affectionate one with light rays of your supreme knowledge and so forth. So in order to practice the Buddha Dharma, you need to have intelligence, be able to use your intelligence, without which you cannot practice it. So before we disperse, I will give some transmissions of mantras. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Eswa. Please repeat. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Eswa. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Eswa. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Eswa is the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha. Next is Aryatara. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Next is Hayagriva. If you have some harm or harmful influence from Nagas, the most important practice is to have compassionate attitude towards them. Ribezakota Hayagiva Hululumbe, Ribezakota Hayagiva Hululumbe, Ribezakota Hayagiva Hululumbe. So I also wish to give the transmission of Vajrakila. So Vajrakila belongs to the activity of the Buddhas, which is related with the Amoga Siddhi, and it also has some connection with the Tibetan course. Please repeat. Om Bezakilikilaya Sawa Binambam Humpe. Om Bezakilikilaya Sawa Binambam Humpe. Om Bezakilikilaya Sawa Binambam Humpe. So with this, the teachings and so forth, having come to Zanskar this time, I have given introduction to the teaching of the Buddha based on the 17 Nalanda master praise, and then also having introduced to the teaching of the Buddha, I have given you teaching on the songs of experience, the concise stages of the path to enlightenment, and for the practice of Dharma, and on top of that you have received the Avalokiteshvara initiation today. And so the important thing is to be compassionate, to have good heart, warm heart, and also be friendly and harmonious, and especially with regard the monastics should always be harmonious. live in harmony. So it's very important for us as monastics to be harmonious amongst ourselves. In the past, in Tibet, there had been conflicts and fighting in the name of the different sects on the basis of our colors of our hats that we wear. We are in the 21st century, and therefore we should be more progressive and should not just cling to the past narrow-mindedness. Sure.